What is the worst day in each country's history? Well, today we are going to find out. Some of these days are worse than others, but for every single country, these are their worst days ever. As the video goes along, the days are only going to get worse and worse, so let's find out what the most catastrophic days in each country's history were. Starting things off with the UK, and our worst day in history was August the 4th, 1348 with the Black Plague, and then in Mexico, their worst day was February 1st, 1519 with the Spanish conquest of Mexico. Millions died fighting and 90% of the population died from a deadly coccolizzi epidemic. Damn. Then in Stockholm, Sweden, of course, on November the 10th, 1520, the Stockholm bloodbath. Hundreds of Swedes were executed by the new Danish king. That is not good. Australia's worst day was January the 26th, 1788, with the first British fleet arrived. That was when we came in and came over to Australia, and of course colonised Australia. The Democratic Republic of Congo's worst day was July the 1st, 1885, and then Turkey's was April 24th, 1915, with the Armenian genocide. Then Canada's worst day was December the 6th, 1917, with the Halifax explosion. We all know about the Halifax explosion. And if you don't, two ships collided to make the largest man-made explosion and nearly 2,000 people died. Most of these worst days are going to be close to a war date. Some of these are going to be very close to World War II, World War I, either or. As we can see, 1917 for World War I and 1919, the year after World War I. But India's worst day in their history was April 13th, 1919, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Sorry if I said that wrong, but British troops opened fire on a peace gathering, killing hundreds of Indians. March 20th, 1921, for Russia, they had the Russian famine. Many millions resorted to cannibalism. There's no way. There's no way that's true. Millions of people resorted to cannibalism due to famine. There's no way. Surely not. I feel like I would have known about that. Surely millions of people didn't do that. Really? I don't want to be disrespectful, but I've never heard of that in my life. Wow, if that's true, that's crazy. Then Italy's worst day was October 28th, 1922, and Spain's was July 18th, 1936, where a civil war started where over 400,000 people would die. In Germany, their worst day was November the 9th, 1938, a violent anti-Jewish pogrom and persecutor to the Holocaust. Yeah, that is just... anything to do with the Holocaust is just so bad. Poland's worst day was September the 1st, 1939, because it was the start of World War II and Germany's invasion on Poland. Then the Netherlands' worst day was May 10th, 1940. This is when the Germans invaded the Netherlands. And then Paris, or France, Paris falls to the Germans on June 17th, 1940 as well. Most of these are just countries like getting attacked by Germany in World War II. Singapore's worst day was February the 15th, 1942, where they surrendered to the Japanese, and then Japan's worst day was August the 6th, 1945. The first of two nukes from the USA killed 120,000 people in Hiroshima. That is absolutely crazy. In Pakistan, partition starts. The partition of India and Pakistan displaced as many as 20 million people on August 14th, 1947. And then Myanmar, their worst day was April the 24th, 1948, the beginning of the longest civil war ever. The war is still going on today, 75 years later, and over 180,000 people have been killed. Whoa. South Korea's worst day was June 25th, 1950. It was the start of the Korean War. That was one of the craziest wars in recent history. Then the Hungarian uprising on November the 4th, 1956 was the worst day for Hungarians. And then February 1st, 1958, Mao's Great Leap Forward. Up to 55 million people died due to failed agriculture reforms and industrialization in China. Wow. April 16th, 1961 was Cuba's worst day. The Bay of Pigs invasions. The US-backed Cuban exiles attempted to overthrow Fidel Castro's government, but failed. And then Brazil's worst day was March 31st, 1964. A military dictatorship begun, later torturing 20,000 people. Peru's worst day was a Estadio Nacional disaster. After soccer fans stormed the pitch, the police fought back and hundreds harshly died. That is absolutely crazy. That happened on May 24th, 1964. Indonesia's worst day was October the 1st, 1965, where mass killings of political enemies happened. And then in Wales, their worst day was October 21st, 1966, where a landslide killed a school of kids, 166 children. Wow, that's so sad. Malaysia's worst day was May the 13th, 13th incident, ethnic clashes and riots in Malaysia with 196 people dying in these riots. Bangladesh's worst day was the Bangladesh genocide. It saw the death and displacement of up to 3 million Bangladeshi citizens by Pakistan. This happened on March 26th, 1971. Lebanon's worst day was April 13th, 1975, and then Cambodia's was April 17th, 1975, and then the civil war began in Sri Lanka in July the 23rd, 1983. Then Croatia's worst day was the Battle of Vukovar. This siege in Yugoslavia lasted 87 days and led to over 1,000 deaths. This happened on August 25th, 1991. May the 20th, 1992 was the start of the Bosnian War in Yugoslavia, and then on April 7th, 1994, the start of the Rwandan genocide in Rwanda. Then Bosnia, I don't know how to say that, sorry, hate to say it. The Srebrenica massacre. Oh god, I definitely said that wrong, sorry. That happened on July the 11th, 1995, where Bosnian Serb forces killed thousands of Bosniak men and boys in... Oh no, that's so bad. Vietnam's worst day was the Vietnam War on November the 1st, 1995, and then Nepal's worst day was the entire royal family got massacred on June 1st, 2001. What? Damn, what? The entire highly popular family, including the king and queen, were all shot in a surprise attack. Yo! That is crazy. Then obviously we have the United States of America, their worst day being 9/11 on September 11th, 2001. That was obviously when the World Trade Center fell down. And yes, it's definitely still traumatic to a lot of Americans now. Then Iraq's worst day was the invasion of Iraq by the US. And then Thailand's worst day was December the 26th, 2004, where the deadliest tsunami killed 230,000 people in a matter of hours. And it is the deadliest tsunami ever. In Haiti, their worst day was January 12, 2010, the earthquake in Port-au-Prince. Then the start of the Syrian war was the worst day in Syria on March 15th, 2011. Then, oh god, July 22nd, 2011, the Otoya Island massacre. If you haven't watched the movie on Netflix, it's called July the 22nd. It is one of the craziest movies and real life situations I've ever seen in my life. This guy pretended to be a police officer and went in this island and just had a gun and just massacred these kids. Oh, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. The Philippines' worst day was a typhoon on November the 3rd, 2013. It was one of the strongest cyclones ever recorded, causing death and loss of life. Then on February 20th, 2014 for Ukraine, Russia begins their invasion. Was it 2014 they begun their invasion? Wow. I guess the war started in like 2021 or something, but the invasion might have started before. This started with the annexation of Crimea. The war is still being fought today. I might have said that word wrong. I actually realised I actually can't read that well. Saudi Arabia, the worst thing that happened to them was on September the 24th, 2015, with the Minya stampede. Overcrowding led to a stampede and thousands of deaths during a pilgrimage to Mecca. That is so sad. October 7th, 2023 was Israel's worst day, with Hamas launching surprise attacks. But that's about it. These are these countries' worst days in their entire history. Let me know your country's worst day in the comments down below, and please make sure you like and subscribe. Oh, and one more thing. Bye.